The following is a great conversation about politics. It is not indicative of the viewpoints and standards of anyone's employer. Just thought I'd let you know. Hello, criminals and ne'er-do-wells. All of you skips, scaps, and scallywags. It's the Bin Podcast. Mikey Famine here. And I have lawyers here, but for the exact reason you didn't expect. It's been a very slow news couple of weeks, I would say. I mean, Trump got shot, barely. Old Uncle Joe has been put out to pasture and he's off to go eat ice cream 24/7, protected by Secret Service. But a new rising star has emerged from the muck to save us from the orange Cheeto stained tyrant that besieges our gates. And to help me talk about it, I have Attorney Anna and just say Harry, Attorney Harry. Welcome, everybody. What are we talking about with Miss Madam President, possibly?
So, hey, y'all. Hey. Welcome to the Culture Under Review. So earlier this week, or maybe sometime last week, the three of us were discussing how we thought that the election might look if Joe Biden were to step aside and allow another candidate to be the Democratic nominee for
One with blood.
the presidency. And at that time, today is July 30th. So this was prior to this actually happening. So if you're listening to this, Joe Biden has obviously already dropped out, and we know that. And we also know that Kamala Harris is the new presumptive Democratic nominee. The convention has not yet happened. So keep in mind that this conversation is kind of where we were prior to this happening and hopefully bringing us back up to speed. So at that time, just to orient you in time, there was no heir apparent to the presidency if Joe Biden were to step aside. There were questions about whether the party would coalesce around one candidate. There were questions about what Joe Biden stepping aside might look like, if it had legal implications, what the political fallout would be, and a host of other stuff that lead us up to where we are today.
The convention is 20 days from recording of this episode.
Yes. So with that, Harry, I'll kick it to you to kind of take us from where you were and to what you thought. And yeah.
So I guess the first thought, to discuss is how is everyone feeling about Joe Biden dropping out? I know for myself, this was something I wanted even before he announced he was running in 2020 election. So here we are in 2024, and I finally got my wishes. Listen, God is good.
Dreams do come true if you just. There can be miracles.
I think that the other point I think I would want to say on him dropping out is I think as a Black people, we need to do a better job at messaging to one another why we wanted to keep him in office. You know, I think there was a lot of discussion that was going on within Black America, particularly figures like Bakari Sellers and Jasmine Lockett, the congresswoman from Texas, Sonny Hostin Crockett, that was really adamant about him staying in the race. And it took a very long time for them to say, because there were conversations behind the scene going on where they were trying to remove both Biden and Kamala off the ticket, and we were not going to allow that happen. And so someone like me, if you see the earlier, discussion on this, I was somebody who was for an open convention because I was on the side of both of their popularity levels are very low. And so let's throw everybody out there to figure out who's going to be the highest cream that rises to the top. But after so much discussion about is that feasible, doesn't make sense, Republicans could sue putting new folks on the ballot. You're not going to skip over a Black woman in any other sense. The vice president will always be the next person that would technically be the heir apparent. I was wrong. And, I think, as we've seen, having Kamala Harris being at the top of the ticket currently right now has put Democrats in a very, very strong contending place. And so ultimately, what were your thoughts about Joe Biden stepping down, and then ultimately how Black figures and the Black community was discussing how they felt that people were traitors against Biden and we needed to shut up and get in line and kind of that.
To me or to Mikey or both?
You can go first.
Oh, I get that was a lot to kind of unpack, but I feel like I guess just to go kind of start where you started out as far as my thoughts about it, I guess I was part of the camp, like to me, without knowing that, and which we have the benefit of now, without knowing that the Democratic Party was going to rally around one candidate, and also the uncertainty of whether Joe Biden was actually going to resign, and if he did resign, when that would happen. I felt that there was a lot of uncertainty that what I didn't want to happen, and I felt like was operating from a place where I didn't want for Joe Biden to step aside. There be a lot of infighting. Democrats have to defend themselves against their positions, against themselves, which just turns into open season for attacks when you're so close to an election. And then are people going to feel salty after that open process is completed? Are people going to still step in to support? Where I can say for me that I was wrong in my assessment is seeing how, which I don't think, and I think to speak to what you just asked, Harry, specifically about what Black leaders were saying and how they were discussing it, I don't think, because this was such an unprecedented moment, we don't have many instances in our history, American history, where people have voluntarily gave up so much power. And so I don't think, I think to trust that the Democratic Party was going to do the right thing when we know that they're still a party, just like the Republican Party, that might eat its own if it needs to. I don't think that the people who discussed it in that way really had that trust that this system was going to go right. Because in my mind, the situation we have now, which is Kamala Harris being the presumptive nominee, is the ideal situation. But almost every single thing had to go right in my mind for this to kind of be what it is. The first thing being Joe Biden steps down in a timely fashion. At the time, Joe Biden was saying up until the very last day that he was going to stay in the race. Now, maybe to the crowd of the Democratic Party, maybe they knew something we didn't know, but as far as like the certain figures in the media or certain prominent figures, I don't think that you could have necessarily known. And depending on what your own personal beliefs or affiliations are, who you're watching speak out against him or not speak out against him might play into that. And I think that the second thing that I'm really happy to say happened is that after that happened, my biggest concern when we had discussed this as friends before this happened was that so many names by people in the Democratic Party were being thrown out there as possible people that would have been contenders. To me, as a Black woman and understanding that Black women are kind of the backbone of the party, I just didn't understand how that could be possible and that they would not coalesce around Kamala Harris, because if Joe Biden died today or that day or whatever day, she would in fact be the sitting president of the United States. So I just didn't understand
But you can understand how that's different though, right?
I can understand how that's different, but to me, what I was getting ready to say is that given the limited time frame, I did not trust that people were going to select her, which is why I didn't know how I felt really, because I never liked the fact that Joe Biden is necessarily owed. And I felt like there was a moment where I felt that he might die in the sense of Ruth Bader Ginsburg and Dianne Feinstein and, potentially Mitch McConnell, and where these people were unwilling to give up power before they die because of their ego. And so I had never seen anything like that. Didn't know if that would happen. Didn't know if that would happen in a timely way, and didn't know whether people would fall in line on a candidate. So glad all of those things happened, but I feel like the calculation at that time was not knowing whether any of those things would happen and being concerned that any of those candidates, Shapiro, Whitmer, Bashar, any of these candidates would have put their hat into the ring, could have changed the entire race to me. And I think that was like a concern, that if we start doing that to ourselves and we're not aligned on one person, that would be the end. So I'm glad that didn't happen.
And so I think Kamala's actually, it turns out that she's the best, probably one of the strongest candidates against a Trump-Vance ticket.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the whole prosecutor angle, it's nice. The historic angle, it's nice. The double historic angle is nice. Well, triple. Um, you know, like Trump could not have pulled a worse card. You know what I mean? Like, this is his worst fucking nightmare, is to have to deal with the Kamala Harris. I don't know. Like, and especially like their entire campaign has been like, we gonna get this abortion. Oh, we're gonna get it. We're gonna get it federal. Just you wait there, Jasper. Like, they have poisoned the well with this abortion talk, and they lost the midterms because of it. They tried to force it down all these states, and their red wave turned into a red trickle. That's all she's been saying on TV is, I'm going to protect your right. I'm going to protect your reproductive rights. That's all she has to say. And I pray to the God I don't believe in that that's all she says. Like, just say that over and over on a loop. I'm going to protect your rights. I'm just going to protect your right to health care. I'm going to protect your health care rights. He's not. I don't have anything else to say. He can blabber on for the next 30 minutes. You know what I mean? Just say that. Match. Mr. Harry.
Well, I guess that goes to the deeper question. We have about 90-something days till the election, and it's how does Kamala Harris win and what gives her the best vision of winning. And while I think that the abortion conversation is something that they should hit hard, continuous, and nonstop, I think that just as James Carville famously said, it's the economy, stupid. And I think that she needs to present a very forward and future-looking vision of what does a Kamala Harris America look like. And it cannot look even like a Joe Biden. I think that Americans are really trying to turn the page with the idea of, I think, economic anxiety. I think of reproductive health anxiety. I think of
Basics.
literally the basics. And so I think the platform that she presents is ultimately going to be very important and get scrutinized real quick. And then I think the vice president she picked. So who is the best white man to join the ticket? This is what
the white man lottery.
Yeah, I think to your point, Harry, about the fact of the time, I think that the fact that there are so many things that she can hit him on, I think that the fact that there's a limited amount of time kind of works in her favor a little bit, because all people know, if I'm oversimplifying it, is we had two people we hated. We have one somebody we can kind of get behind. There's not that much time, so it's not like people are expecting a full, robust, like, economic plan, like maybe we would if a candidate had been through the whole cycle, because like we're also getting this candidate to talk abortion, to talk Supreme Court, to talk democracy, to talk election integrity, to talk crimes that this person has committed, to talk all type of, in addition to the economy and healthcare and all the basic necessities and stuff like that. And also, I think that one of the biggest things that the biggest arguments or feathers in the cap that she diffuses of the Republicans, or at least the Trumpians, is like the intersectionality piece of it. They can't use outwardly the normal. I mean, they can, but like Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, just called a meeting to basically have them refrain from some of the vitriol. So I think that with the short amount of time, in my mind, it works in her favor, because everybody kind of understands what this is. Like, yes, we want to see you be proactive as a candidate. We want good things to happen instead of just voting against him. But I don't think that, if I'm honest, the cynical me doesn't think that that's a super high bar, because people are, comparing it to inflation, economy. And another podcast that I listened to, Pod Save America, had made the point that some people don't get a chance to make a second first impression, but she does, because she can take credit for some of the Biden's Harris administration successes, but then she can also distinguish herself a little bit to talk about how her vision would have been different and more forward looking than Joe Biden's policies. So
I'm gonna say I think voters are expecting her to lay out a vision. I don't think the 4 to 5% of the swing voters that are really up for grabs in this election, I don't think that they're willing to give a pass that she, even with the short runway that she has. I think that's why her in her campaign know, and they're moving so hard. That's why she just had 2,500 campaign events just last weekend. Is that voters are not going to give the pass. There was one gentleman, I can't think of what his name was, but he was on CNN, and he pretty much stated, lifelong Republican, that I pretty much don't like her policy, so I really want her to choose like a decent sized moderate Republican, but I'm ready to turn the page on Trump just because we need a democracy to fight for. And I think that you have that slew of folks who are being like, lay out a few moderate economic policies, get someone as a VP candidate pick that'll be moderate, and I could kind of go with you. I think that the majority of Democrats, whether or not she lays out a policy position, I think are going to vote for her. Just you had a significant amount of Democrats that were going to vote for Joe Biden, but I think that's more of a party thing. But that swing voter, they say that 4 or 5% that exists, that is deciding whether or not they're going to vote for Trump. I don't know. I think that Republicans get the pass of not pulling out policy positions to get votes. I don't think Democrats get that same pass.
To an extent, though, because I feel like one thing Kamala's been able to do is mobilize new voters and engage in a completely new swath of voters that was not going to participate in the first place. And I'm not saying that that fully counteracts the swing voter that she might be trying to reach by choosing a random insert here white man as a VP. But like, I do also think that because people are now optimistic, just because it's her, I think that that unlocks a whole heap a whole heap
You're so
a whole
country.
slew of, I know, I as soon as I said it I just start laughing. I think that it's just gonna that impacts a certain part of the electorate that wasn't even previously going to necessarily participate. But I don't think, to say that I don't want it to be like I don't think she shouldn't have any policy. I just don't think that, like, for example, the Heritage Plan, Project 2025, that we'll talk about, that's a plug. I don't think that they're going to be looking for something as intricate and elaborate as this 900-page document. But I also don't think it's going to be like contract with America. Like, I don't think it's like one of those kind of things. I think it's, do I agree with where your position is on this and what you intend to do, as so long as I know it, kind of thing, more than like you need to fully lay this out. I think if she had been the candidate for the whole time, we might want to see more detail about that. And at the same time, the press would have more time to follow up with specific questions about the policies, which is a lot of times in my mind why candidates lay certain stuff out in the first place. So I don't want that to mean that she won't have any policies, but I just don't think there's as much expectation for like intricacy, given we know the timetable on all of this.
Great explanation.
From what it looks like online, her website has none of her platform on there, which is worrying. Kamala, you need to fix that.
$200 million, no platform, first rapper ever. Sorry, Soulja Boy. Kamala was the first rapper to raise $200 million in 2 weeks.
Kamala?
And she had Megan Thee Stallion perform with the Hotties for Harris. Sorry, Soulja.
She raised that in 7 days. She hasn't even been in a race for 2 weeks.
7 days, $200 million, no policy. Nothing on the website.
But from what I gather from a couple of different articles, it'll just be a continuation of Bidenomics. So more infrastructure stuff, CHIPS Act, Science Act, student debt for qualified borrowers, supporting unionization and collective bargaining. Let's see, promoting competition to lower costs and help entrepreneurs and small businesses to thrive. Combating junk fees and their prescription thing. They're going to try and cap more prescriptions. So nothing fancy, but
America.
Yeah.
So in order to keep this beautiful vision of America where we have democracy, where we can fight over corporate taxes and a right to access to abortion, who is the right white man for the job? Is it Governor Josh Shapiro from Pennsylvania?
They've been
Is
calling
it
him the white
Governor
Obama.
Andy Beshear from Kentucky? Is it Senator Mark Kelly from Arizona? Mikey, Anna, let's discuss.
Okay, can I say now, upon listening to other podcasts, I'm realizing that I'm in the minority with this opinion, so let me just lead with this. But I think that Mark Kelly, who Senator Mark Kelly, who would be a fantastic, fantastic, fantastic vice presidential pick. I think that if if there is any political calculation that we're trying to, or that the Harris question mark ticket is trying to appeal to somebody
TBA.
who, is trying to appeal to someone who is a working class person, a working class white person who has some apathy about maybe people who are doing better in life or their socioeconomic status. I just am curious of what it would look like to have a lawyer and an astronaut on a ticket together. And that's not to say that neither of those individuals are working class people, but I think that if I'm their opponents, JD Vance, with the hillbilly elegy and Trump being Trump, I just wonder if those voters are in their calculation to target, and if so, whether they might look at a ticket like that and think, even though it's wrong, even though most presidents have been lawyers, even though it's not logical, the astronaut, like, to me, if you're trying to appeal to the people who don't necessarily always believe in science, that I wonder if the astronaut thing might be a
It
detriment
will
as
hurt the
opposed to
flat earther.
somebody.
It'll hurt the flat earther demographic for sure if you put an
So,
astronaut
But
in
I
there.
just wonder how many of those type of individuals are you trying to pick up versus someone who has already is a governor, or some something that's not as elite, I guess. Like, even though it makes I hate when this happens. Even though it makes no sense, like, there's, to me, not a difference between, like, let's just say you're someone who's a governor who is also a lawyer, like, but I just think the astronaut thing just opens the conspiracy door wide open. And given the way that people were willing to lean into Trump conspiracies, I just wonder if there's any political calculation of whether that would play a detriment. To me, everybody is equally qualified, more or less, to fill the role. I mean, they all are qualified in their own ways, of all the names you just named.
so,
But he's the unique concern I have about that.
so to answer the question, you feel that Senator Mark Kelly is the best option despite the concerns that you listed.
No. Oh, sorry. Maybe I didn't finish that. I
So
don't
to
think he's
answer the
best
question,
option at all. I think
who is the best option?
sorry, where I ended was, I think any of those people you named could be there. I think Mark Kelly would be not on that list. This is what I'm trying to say. I think, for the reasons I said, I think it could be really any other person but Mark Kelly.
You're supposed to pick
So
one
you're
and
gonna
a
answer
guess.
your own question instead of the one posed.
You just want to guess. It's a
y'all
guess.
want to be BC so bad.
Get on the record. What's your hot take?
So Mikey,
Governor of
to Anna's non-answer.
Governor of Pennsylvania, I think Shapiro probably would be the best candidate. To me, so long.
Fine, I'm going with Kelly. I'm going opposite.
Wait, but did you really want to go Shapiro, and then you just went Kelly because I said no to Kelly? Or did you really think Shapiro?
We'll never know, because I'm all in your brain now. Rent free.
I think Shapiro is the, swing state. He has a charismatic speaker. I think he's also Jewish, so I think that helps with communities that may have felt alienated by the administration. They're already talking about
You need to get a Muslim. You better get Rashida Tlaib up there.
I'm like,
you want Michigan?
They barely getting the racist and sexist attacks on her. Then they gonna have 2 women of color up there.
Why not an all-woman ticket?
I want that. I saw listening to podcasts that had interviewed a few focus groups, and some of them don't believe that a woman should be at the top of the ticket, let alone 2 women. And it just really concerned me how many people, including women, felt that way. So that's my only drawback. It's not that I wouldn't want that. The focus groups are seeming really weird on that issue. But I think Shapiro.
America's sexist.
Cover in a lot of important ways. And he's shown that he can win a battleground state, and he's very popular in that state. So
So what happened to Mayor Pete and Gavin Newsom? They're out of the picture?
I like Mayor Pete a lot. I don't know that he would want to be a VP though. I've listened to a few interviews of his, and I get the sense that
I need you to serve your country one more time, little skinny Captain America kid.
I get the sense that he would want to do his own thing instead of being like shelved. And I feel that VP seems shelved.
I think Mayor Pete is very much aware of his lack of credentials that he brings to a 2024 VP role. And I think he is intelligent enough to recognize that he can always get a role in this administration without needing to be VP because he is so young that he has the potential to be a future president. I also think that he's wise enough to also understand. I think folks just need to understand if you want to run for president, absent Donald Trump, you need to have one statewide somewhere. It is unfathomable in politics for you to be able to win nationwide if you cannot carry a state. And so that's why people to judge wouldn't be a good VP ticket. What state would he bring? Which group of voters would he bring to the table? He is a Rhodes Scholar. He is Oxford educated. The man speaks multiple languages. He's gay, so even though that he was in the military, they're not going to give him that same association and the same reverence that they would give someone else who were straight.
If he pulled it like, yo, I'm a patriot, I served, and you got Bone Spur McTyrant over here. So I mean,
but
like, I think you can play that against them.
You, because you mentioned 2 women on the ticket, which I think is absurd.
Sexist.
And it's not because it's 2 women, but I think to have Kamala add another woman to her ticket is absurd. I guess to you is, do you think Kamala Harris, with this little bit of time, with so much at stake, with her being a Black woman, understanding the racism and misogyny that's in America, should she risk her political future by trying to be even more history making?
Mm-hmm. People are already mad at her for being diverse. So she's going to put a gay dude on the ticket. She's going to put a person of color. She's going to put a woman on the ticket. Like, they like, who was out? Whitmer, Governor Moore, Pete Buttigieg. They was like, we not finna do DE and Idaho ticket. We finna have some normalcy, quote unquote, which is why it's a white
so you're
man.
saying DEI is forcing us to put a non-Black candidate on the ticket. This is some bullshit.
Imagine and it's crazy that you have to account for people's voting calculus like that, but the focus groups bear out the information that people are like, well, if she's the only choice, but in no terms am I going to have 2 women over him. Like, like what, so that's disappointing of it.
I wish y'all would grow up, man.
Huh?
I said, I wish y'all would grow up, Americans. Y'all are so fucking sophomoric and basic. Like, this shit is so trash. We're doing the dumbest shit every day.
This the party
because
in order to have a felon at the top of the ticket. We're not.
You know what I'm saying? Like, why are we still on this bullshit?
I think Governor Josh Shapiro is the best choice. If you go back and you look at the 2020 election and you look at Governor Josh Shapiro and Mark Kelly. Mark Kelly performed 5 points better in the state of Arizona over Joe Biden. However, Josh Shapiro performed 16 points higher in the state of Pennsylvania than Joe Biden did in 2020. Democrats need Pennsylvania for the Electoral College. That's 19 electoral votes. And it increases Democrats' chance by about 30% if they win Pennsylvania versus, I think, only 3 or 4% whether they win Arizona. And so I think just even for the electoral map, which should be the main focus, Josh Shapiro is the best approach.
And that's why Gavin's bad.
He was too polarizing. Well, people hate California anyways. And not that I love California.
And she's from California. So it's like, good job.
Y'all not finna take over the entire country with your liberal policies
See,
from
there's
communist
West
San
Coast
Francisco.
liberals.
He called it communist San Francisco. I'm like, not the city, just communist. You go to the suburbs, it's fine. You're fine. So yeah,
Communist San
I think he's
Francisco.
the safest choice, but I also think that one of the biggest issues that she will need to overcome from the Biden-Harris administration is the war. So I think that
That's
she
why
has to
getting rid of Biden, that's why that was so important.
I actually don't think that's going to be a big issue for her. I think that the Harris campaign needs to articulate that when you are VP, you are number two. And number twos are number twos for a reason. You go with the message and you are in a certain role. However, now she's number one and she's running on her own ticket, and this is her vision for the world. She recently had a sitting down with Netanyahu, and the message afterwards, the speech that she gave was very measured. It was very nuanced, and it gave a little bit to everybody. It acknowledged the pain and suffering of what happened on October 7th. It acknowledged some of the atrocities that Hamas is doing, and it also acknowledged that what Netanyahu is doing is causing grave harm, and it will not continue, and that a deal needs to get done immediately. And so I think they need to know how to message. The issue, that was Joe Biden's decision. And as his vice president, you can't tell him to stop. You can't go against him, because that is how this goes. And we as adults in this political space fully need to come to that understanding. And I think if they message that the right way, that's a non-issue. Now,
Like Joe went home. Kamala's here now. So
exactly. And when I'm in office,
stitch this shit right the fuck up.
This is the nuanced approach that I'll take with it. Now, if they allow colleges to come back, school starts in a month. If they allow college students to come back and they lose the narrative and the media cycle gets away from them, we could be having a different conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that how the students' interaction is part of it, but I also think like the war itself just is determinative, right? Because like there was a big, there's like a lot of domestic issues going on in Israel right now, but also Yemen is involved. Like the Prime Minister of Turkey has made comment, like so like the geopolitical landscape could just look different, and I don't, depending on what that landscape look like throughout the rest of the election, she might not be able to control the messaging, or she might have to make more urgent messages or more pointed messages at the risk of potentially offending certain groups. So I think right now, like to your point, like things are fine. And if we can just kind of maintain where we are, like the message is fine. Her speech was great. Like, understanding that.
Well,
but also
Israel's already mad. Like BB's already pissed off. Mr. Pennsylvania man, Mr. Philadelphia man, want to act like he's some motherfucker. I'm from you from Philly. I'm sick of your shit. You need to run for office and carry Pennsylvania for us. But his whole God, I just lost my fucking train of thought making fun of him. Oh yeah, he does not believe in a two-state solution at all.
Who doesn't?
Him and his Likud party in Israel.
Yeah.
We finna wipe their asses out is what they're saying. They don't believe in no two-state making all that. Look, let us finish what we're trying to do. Give us what we need so we can finish the job faster.
Yeah.
Fucking monster. But that's where he's at. He don't like. I can already tell he's not gonna have a great relationship with her. It's not going well already. You're always supposed to bend the knee and kiss the ring and say how awful it is for them, and we will never leave you, and you're supposed to do all that shit. You're not supposed to talk about let's get a deal done. Let's do why are you telling me what to do? I tell you what to do. Well, new sheriff in town.
Yeah, and that's why I said the geopolitical landscape will just be determinative to me, because like she hasn't really had to make a decision on Israel yet, right? Like now it's like more or less like talking points, not to minimize it, but like she really hasn't had to take like action or exactly a public stance on something that's like imminently happened. So like if that changes, I wonder.
I feel like she just did though, no? That's what the statement was.
Well, she said this two-state solution, but I'm saying it's not like, remember there
Like,
was an
that is a
escalation
stance.
on it is a stance, but I'm saying like, for example, if I'm not messing this up, I believe the prime minister of Turkey or something said that they had the right to like you go through or use certain land that would
The
be
Golan
otherwise
Heights.
considered an act of war. No, it wasn't the terrorist. It was the prime minister.
No, the
But
Golan Heights. Because he said, actually,
oh, oh,
he's like, actually, that's ours anyway.
Oh, I thought you said something else.
No, no.
Yeah, if I'm not
Yeah.
mistaken, I think that's it. But I'm just saying, like,
And
if there's an escalation in the region, people are going to be expecting a different response than, oh, we need to just dial this down, two-state solution. It's going to be like, they just did X. What say you,
Right.
Madam Future President? And I think that's a different question than what do you think of what's going on right now, which is the status quo.
I won't give my answer.
Yeah.
And so I also want voters, I'm not going to give my opinion on how I feel on it, but what I want voters to understand that if this is a major issue for you, we live in a binary choice. And so the choice is you have the ability to move the needle with someone like a Kamala Harris to ultimately get the solution that you want to do and that you want to get to, or you have someone on the other side who likely allow Israel to potentially wreak havoc if they give him something that he wants, because he'll always make a deal. I also want to make a point to say, if this is the number one issue for you, understand that there are a lot of other issues that are going to affect you, and this is what brings us to Project 2025. Project 2025 has a slew of other policies that the conservative administration did not just start here. This is something that began in the Reagan administration, has just been adopted and grown over time, of what the landscape of what they want the United States to look like. And so understand that if you want the bombings to stop, the slaughtering of young children to stop, and maybe you're not fundamentally or fully happy with what the response is now, understanding that that could continue and other worse things could happen.
My question though is like, for all the people that they might not necessarily vote against, but they might not vote at all. Like, there was a lot of people who, like, and to me, demonstrating the power of the vote, voted against Biden in the primary, or because the same arguments can be made, like the same threats still exist. We just have a different candidate on that line. So I just wonder, like, for people who that is a major issue for, maybe they don't vote. What I worry about is maybe they don't necessarily vote for Trump, but maybe they just don't vote at all. And like, I just worry about those voters who I don't like Trump, but I also don't like, if it were to happen, God forbid.
So
I don't like Kamala. I don't like Kamala's position. So I'm just going to stay at home and I'm not going to vote at all. And so I just worry about that.
So that's why I say she was number 2 and now she's number 1. The language of what Biden was using versus her language is diametrically opposed. They are different. She has created much more of a nuanced conversation. It is a very, American politics is nasty. It's brutal. It's brute. And it's very unfair. And so to the American voter, just like as Black voters, we have to have a certain understanding when things happen. I think to voters that if this is one of their top issues, then there has to be a deep understanding that America has an allyship with Israel. And so there's going to be a softness in the language that is being used publicly, even if there's being pressure put on behind the scenes. I can't dictate what is going to happen. I can be hopeful just like the next person, but I do think if that is your number one issue, I could understand your feeling of Joe Biden is currently actively doing this. Well, he's not the candidate, and the next candidate could change course. They could stay the same course, and I'll acknowledge that, but they could also change course, and I think based on the language, it's hinting towards that is where that Kamala is going.
Yeah, that's why I said if the geopolitical landscape changes and she takes a position, I think that the benefit, just to take it back to where we were, the benefit in having Shapiro is to hopefully that can be made up for, or like there can be some type of line walking, because I just worry about like a decisive electorate in Michigan is the Arab Muslim population, which if everybody just decides to non-vote or to, write in or whatever, that could legitimately change the course of the entire election. So, again, right now, Kamala can do the best messaging. She's at like peak message because she gets to control the narrative, but I worry about what.
But I think that's not fair though, right? Because I don't think the Muslim voters in America are not asking for crazy shit. They're saying, if you want Iron Dome, they can have Iron Dome, but stop sending the big shit. And then they just said, you know what I mean? So like, you could always, and this is the thing about hostages, right? You have to give them what they want. They've gotten you. It's checkmate. You have to acquiesce. They're saying don't send the bombs. Radical notion. Don't send them the bombs. And then win the election, and then just continue to not send them bombs, and they'll figure, you know what I'm saying? Like, you could just do the right thing, and that will do wonders for you in the election. You know what I mean?
No,
take that stance.
Agree with that 100%. I guess I'm just getting at the point where like Harry was saying that they're because
save our money. Fucking shit.
Agree, but understanding that Israel is an official American ally, I'm thinking of a situation, and maybe it is unfair because it hasn't happened yet, but I'm just anticipating
in a client state, by the way,
a situation where she has to take a position that is offensive, because like maybe the position is, let's just say Israel gets attacked again, and then the American response is, okay, well, Israel needs more bomb, or Israel needs more weaponry, instead of, oh, hey, they have enough weaponry in which you could alienate, Jewish people potentially, or vice versa. So I just worry about walking that line, and I think I think about that in a VP calculation.
And that's great, and that's cool that they get privileged client status with us as their older brother to just pay for everything and then beat up everybody and do well. Guess what? America's getting a little bit old in the tooth. We ain't got it like that no more. So you
don't got what? Like what?
We ain't got all the billions of dollars we're sending. So that hits different.
Not the money they be taking out of my check. They got it. I know y'all got it.
You know what I'm saying? So all these billions of dollars getting sent to Israel, and then they cut UNRWA. And then like they cut the money for Ukraine. So it's like you doubled some people. We're at home hurting.
The last word.
You doubled it for some people, and we're at home hurting. They don't look broke over there. You know what I mean? So that looks away when we're continuing to fund people who have a better fucking lifestyle than we do.
And they get free college, free healthcare.
I don't think none of the people that you're talking about that agree with that position, including myself, ever contested that. I think it was the people who were against that idea or had fundamentally believed something else that the president would be trying to court. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think none of what you're saying is wrong. I agree with that.
Just like, you know what? Hey, we ain't got it. We're on a lean winter over here. So
budget. I was like, the Republicans said cut it. We need to cut it.
We need to cut it.
So I'll say I agree with everything you're saying. I think now we have to talk about that in political strategy. She's also still his VP. And so while she can have her own vision of what she would do differently, she can't stray too far away from his message. Otherwise, it'll look like they're not in lockstep, and you just cannot do that. I think that it goes back to my original point that American politics, it's brutal, it's brute, and it's very unfair. It's one of those things where everyone will have to come to the table at some point to say, this is the absurdity that I have to deal with in order to ultimately get what I need out of it. Right. And so for me, I am looking for, and I hope that the voters of Michigan, and I hope that her surrogates and the Harris campaign are there and they're talking to them on a more ground level and making sure the message that they hear the nuance that has been articulated to them in a way that helps them understand that essentially help is on the way, or a change of course of action is to come. And on that note, Project 2025. See you next week.
Peace.
And this is the culture under review.